Taiwan has this like sneaky, kind of the way Japan has, like this secret, but also very, very vibrant. Wow, I mean, so many things have changed. I'll harass people all the time, be like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you from? They have their own self-identification of being, you know, 很亲切, 热情的地方, drug dens, and they were weird, dark, strange places, and it was still a boom time. And then in Taiwan, where you have fresh markets and you have a big urban areas with lots of people, and life was a lot different. There were many, many changes culturally in Taiwan. Then you get crazy smells, you get the hot heat. When I first came, they didn't have like a good garbage retrieval system, so people were just putting their garbage out in the corner. You could go and hang out among those people and be accepted, and everything was all right. And there were people that tested that and got horribly punished for, but it wasn't really a relaxing atmosphere.
Hi, 大家好，欢迎来 Welcome to Taiwan. Today we are in Tainan to have a chat with our American friend. And before we start, please don't forget to click that subscription button, like the video, and help us share if you can. Also, you can become a channel member. We're gonna have a raffle draw every month for 10 channel members. So be a channel member and you have a chance of winning something a month.
My name is Jason, got my whole name, Jason Backham. I'm a teacher right now, but I've done lots of different things. But currently I teach mostly just in the afternoons and then take care of my kids. And then my number one hobby is to play music in a band. I'm from the US, grew up in the state of Wisconsin. Previous to this, for many years, I worked for the company that my friends and I started. So we have a company. I'm still a founder and a shareholder, but I don't work there regularly, although I did for maybe 15 to 18 years, something like that. We started as a school, and now they do like apps for iPads called StudyCat. But they have, most of their staff is international. I think they have maybe 40% staff is in Taiwan or 30%, and then the rest of the employees are all working remotely from other parts of the world. Almost 29 years, I guess, I've been teaching off and on. So when I first came to Taiwan, I was 20 years old. Me and my best friend, we had a plan. Originally, we were gonna go to South America. We lived in Minnesota, in the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we'd been working for a while, and the winter was coming again, and the winters up there in Minnesota are very brutal and depressing affairs. So we had planned that no matter what, we were gonna leave. And our original plan was to drive an old truck to South America, maybe film it and have this kind of adventure. And then we didn't have enough money to do anything like that. We had a bunch of things go wrong. And then our second plan was to go to Taiwan. We had a friend who had taught us a bit of basic Chinese, and he told us that there's this place we could go where we could study Chinese, and there's a good chance we could get a job. That was our plan B, and we took our last paychecks and we bought tickets. We tried to get visas and they wouldn't let us, but they let us have a landing visa, and then later we were able to continually parlay visas through school or whatever to stay. But we came when we were first 20 years old and lived in Taipei. 6 months of living in the city, we discovered Tainan, or I did. I met some people from here and then moved down and realized that was much better quality of life to live in the south. We could have a larger place, and the weather was really good, and the people were very friendly, and it was a better environment for learning Chinese. That was in 1995, I guess, or 96.
How would you compare Taiwan 20 years ago to Taiwan now?
Wow, I mean, so many things have changed, but most of them are, like I think of my day-to-day life, like food. Like when I first came, you couldn't buy bread, or it was like coffee was sort of expensive. They didn't have like a cheap coffee and stuff on the street like nowadays you can get anywhere. Starbucks had not come. Most of the big grocery store chains hadn't arrived, so it was still kind of it was still boom time in Taiwan. So there was a lot of economic boom going on, but it hadn't had the Western influence yet of the big grocery stores and things like that. And life was a lot different. There were many, many changes culturally in Taiwan, at least the things that I've seen. When you first get here, culture shock, like there's a little honeymoon of a couple of months where everything is new and wonderful and you have a lot of great new experiences. And then about 6 months in, I think is when the nasty culture shock hits. And that can lead to a lot of depression and anxiety for people because of the language, the fact that you don't really understand what people are saying around you all the time. You can't read, you can't get food that you like all these things are limiting you and you don't realize it. And if you start to get paranoid, because people are looking at you and othering you all the time, so you start to get paranoid that they're saying negative things, you can spin out really fast. And I think there are definitely periods early on, and I've seen that in other people where they have a really dark period, 6 months or to a year in, where they get through it and things get better, or they leave. people always look at you weird when you try to talk, or, you know, people will just not understand you because they're not prepared for it, and then it's really frustrating. You're like, I should know how to ask for the bathroom and nobody understands me. So that when I realized that, like, oh, and like I need to get the tonality down, otherwise I'm always going to be sort of misunderstood, and it's more frustrating. I spent a lot of time just thinking, listening to the tones in my head, practicing them while riding around on the motorbike and whatnot. And then like that made a breakthrough in being able to speak more fluently. And in Tainan, everybody speaks Taiwanese. So you can speak Mandarin all day long, but as soon as they get with a group of other Taiwanese speakers, you're out again, and it doesn't matter how many years you've been learning and how fluent you think you are, you're suddenly back at square one. The first thing that gets you coming from another place is what smells people in a new place are used to, right? And then in Taiwan, where you have fresh markets and you have a big urban areas with lots of people, then you get crazy smells, you get the hot heat and, you know, garbage. When I first came, they didn't have like a good garbage retrieval system, so people were just putting their garbage out in the corners, and like there was a lot of like smells and things on the hot days that were overwhelming, and weird foods, you know, like stinky tofu and whatnot would get you in the street, like what? So those like, but you know, those were things that were like, oh, you had to get used to that, you know, like bits of discomfort from the heat, and coming down the south, it was always hot and whatnot. That's also, coming from a cold place, also something that I learned to really enjoy, because it was like endless summer. And it's like when we first came here, we were, you know, I was very young, so and in America I wasn't even of legal drinking age, so we didn't go out in America, like we didn't have any access to that whole scene. When in Taiwan we did. So right away we started, you know, going out all the time and going to dance clubs, and that was that also at that point in time in Taiwan, that was changing. Originally the clubs were like places basically where young sort of gangster kids would go to hang out. And you could go in there and be, if you were friendly and you know, well-mannered and good decorum, you could go and hang out among those people and be accepted, and everything was all right. And there are people that tested that and got you know, horribly punished for being rude. But if you're not a rude person, then you fit very well into their ethos, and you're able to go and be part of that. But it wasn't really a relaxing atmosphere. And then, you know, later on, those clubs evolved into like places where people would go out and dance, and that nightlife took over Taiwan for a long time. And we were basically nocturnal people, so for a whole bunch of my life, and the fact that my work as a teacher didn't usually start until the afternoon. I'd go to school in the morning, study Chinese, and then go out and, you know, and work in the afternoon, and not finish until mid-evening, and then it was just stay up all night, every night for years and years. And I lived with my best friends. We got a house together and basically like remained just kids for as long as we possibly could, until we were like, well, I guess we're in our 30s now, we probably should like marry our girlfriends and move out of our bachelor pad. But for the longest time, that was like what the run of life. And so I saw the evolution of this nightlife. Went from a place where it was only really gangster kids that went out to a place where everybody went out and mixed together and stuff, and lots of different foreigners. And then the demographic of the foreigners changed. But originally Tainan had very few foreigners. It was like a small community. So if you were walking on the street and you saw another foreigner, you would just go and talk to them. I still do that. I'll harass people all the time, be like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you from? And they're like, oh, they look at me because they think they're anonymous here. But then it was such a small place that everybody knew everybody. And so that was the community built out of that, which was really nice. We saw that kind of change to where then the foreign demographic changed to where lots more international students came. So it wasn't all just Canadians and Americans and English people and Australians and South Africans. Then it was people from everywhere, Central and South America and Africa. And then like once the demographic changed, the city went through, and I think it still exists, but I think it's quieted down a lot. But it went through this great period where you could go out on a Saturday night and there would be an amazing DJ, an amazing band, and everybody in the place was just beautiful and from everywhere. And it was this beautiful mixing of peoples, and it was very fun. So for a long time we just didn't sleep. And that even evolved to then, you know, from like people going out and dance clubs and all you can drink nights and a mix of lots of different people out together, to then like there was a period when there was these late night places. That's where the sort of gangster crowd then went to. All the gangsters had grown up a bit. They were older and they went to these underground, I don't know if you ever went to one of these places, but there are these underground clubs that were not legal, but the police turned a blind eye to it until they didn't, right? For a while they did. And I think they were predominantly in the South. They probably had similar ones in the North too, but it was very much a Southern thing where you would find these, and these places would stay up until 9, 10 in the morning. And obviously though, like there were, everything goes, they were kind of like drug dens, and they were weird, dark, strange places and with heavy techno. The interesting part was the music was Taiwanese-born like techno, and it was its own style of music, and it was really good. But the scene was pretty grim, you know, like if you're leaving a place at 9 in the morning and like in the bright, blazing Tainan sun, you're like questioning all of your life decisions really fast. And so that changed. So a lot of people then like had kids, and I think in the recent evolution of that whole scene of things has been the clubs are not a thing anymore. The dance clubs, the late night things are kind of over, and people go out for like a fancy drink, and it's more like hipster bars and nice drinks and quiet places, and is not as much.
Is there any changes in Taiwanese behavior towards foreigners back then compared to now?
This question depends a lot on where you are in Taiwan, because what I noticed very early on was there's a big difference between Taipei and the rest of the country, and especially Taipei in the south, in the way that foreigners, because in Taipei, foreigners had been in Taipei for decades and decades as part of the diaspora. So it was not particularly special. But in the south, it remained, you know, you're even to this day, there are still people that will, you know, will point out the fact that you're a foreigner, which is interesting. It comes for me being white with a lot of privilege, right, and being American. And blonde, and it comes with a lot of privilege for me. So like it's weird to be called out and have people point at you and say 外国人. But at the same time, I know that I get a lot of privilege that I'm probably not aware of, you know, and partially from being outside of the society and not having to follow societal norms, and which is, you know, something that all foreigners kind of appreciate, especially if you're from a country that you come with some privilege. So, you know, you get to kind of live outside the culture. There's not that much expectation for you to be the same way or be polite in the same way. And I think that probably plays out even more in the South because you are special, you know, more here than you would be in Taipei. And that's for everybody in a big, big city as opposed to a smaller city. Plus the things play in, like the weather in Tainan and Kaohsiung tends to be nice and sunny over the summer. People have their own self-identification of being, you know, 很亲切, 热情的地方. So they're like, they like to live that up, that, you know, that they're a friendly place and welcoming. I've always been treated well by people here, and being othered is not something that's necessarily negative. It can be negative, and it can make you feel negative. And if you're in a dark place, being othered and being, you know, pointed out as being someone different from everyone else definitely feels bad. But, you know, there's a balance for me. The thing that kind of has become a new question in my life is, you know, I have 2 kids, and they look more like me than they do their mom, who's Taiwanese. So they're often called foreigner, yeah, even though they're not foreign. So this is a new thing for Taiwanese to in their own culture to deal with the fact that there are now Taiwanese that don't look Taiwanese. And but for those kids, you know, and they have a quick, they just get an instant catch on someone's like, oh, if someone calls me foreigner, that means they're coming from a place of some ignorance and some, you know, whatever. But
smart kids.
Yeah.
Very interesting take. How is it like raising a family here in Taiwan?
Some of the disadvantages from my growing up is that I don't feel comfortable just letting my kids go outside on their own, right? I'm getting more and more comfortable with letting them walk to the store on their own. But, you know, where I grew up, I don't know what it was like when you grew up, but, you know, it was like just go outside and the world was free to you, and you go find your friends and you'd come home at dinner time, and that was that. So that's a big difference from the way I was, and like how we got strong because we did that. We went too far. We had to walk really far. We did all this stuff that made us tough. We learned how to suffer. So my kids, that's going to be harder for them. There's a lot of screens and a lot of comfort in their lives, and everything's based on being indoors. So you know, finding a way out of that, to break out of that egg, is hard for the family. I think it's wonderful that they're growing up bilingual and the amount of like just intelligence that offers them and perspective. But it is hard being considered a foreigner by your own classmates that have to constantly tell old ladies in the market that, you know, you're not a foreigner or whatever, and that you can speak Chinese when it's your native language. So that's weird for them. And me being a dad, and things like the environment, you know, like when my kids were babies, and it's gotten better in recent years, and I think that has to do with politically in Taiwan who's in charge. But like environment has gotten a little better. The air, there was a few winters when the air was absolutely atrocious all the time, and when my kids were really little at the time. And then on top of that, people would be out burning paper money, the Taoist tradition, and I would feel just mad. You know, it's like, come on, you guys know that the air is bad, and this is obviously, like, I know it's superstition, there's no logic involved, or it's religion, so like you're gonna do it whether you want to or not. But like, come on, like these are actual children breathing in bad air so that our ghost ancestors can have money. It's wrong in so many ways. So I would find myself, you know, no sleep with these 2 babies riding around on bicycles, yelling at old guys for burning paper money, and like, what am I doing? And, you know.
20 years in Taiwan, what is 1 or 2 things that Taiwanese do differently compared to Americans?
one of the things that I love that Taiwanese like to have a 24-hour culture. There's really like, even though they're quiet places around the town and stuff, there's always something happening, right? And I love that about Taiwan, is that you don't have to live in a particular time. There's always food to eat in the middle of the night, like whatever. You can always alter your way. I like that fact, because I know going back to Minnesota and like northern USA, it's just everything shuts down at a certain time of night. You're expected to live within this daily schedule. So that's a great thing about Taiwanese culture. I think Taiwanese tend to be way more family-centric and don't instantly want to move away from the home, right? Like moving away from home is not something everyone looks forward to. Whereas when I was a kid in America at 18, it was like, as soon as you could, you leave. And before that, and because we were latchkey kids anyway, so we grew up very independent and we wanted to move as far away. And now when I'm older and I feel so separated from my family, I'm like, oh, what was that drove me away? Now I'm spending all this energy trying to get closer to them again. But in Taiwanese, they don't see it that way. It's fine for them to live together. Like my wife, we still live near her parents, and we see them all the time. They're a part of our life, which I think is important. It's a weird thing that got lost in American culture, that now they're trying to get back, I think. But I don't think Taiwan has changed much in the way of opportunity. If anything, it's gotten better in that Taiwan you don't necessarily have to be a teacher or work in business. You can potentially create your own future here.
29 years in Taiwan. What has Taiwan taught you?
Yeah, Taiwan has taught me a lot about living in the moment. Like, I think that has been the big lesson. I think that when I came to Taiwan as a kid, that I was very anxious and I was obsessed with the future and the past and whatever, like constantly not learning how to live in the moment. And I met people and friends and community here that allowed me to see, like, through sports and through music, there are ways in which you could constantly be living within the day, even in your job, whatever your job is. So there's a lot of points in time in my day-to-day life in Taiwan where I focused on living in the moment and not living in the anxious future or the depressive past, right? So I think that's been a big lesson about life in Taiwan, and and the importance of family.
Do you have anything else to tell Taiwanese people?
Oh, just how grateful I am that this place exists and for the culture that they have created, and how much I cherish it and am grateful for it every day. About, like, despite the fact that Taiwan has issues and problems like everywhere, but there is a sense in Taiwan of like community strength, and there's love for people and family. I think that Taiwan has a lot of advantages that can help it survive the constant onslaught again of ignorance and whatever that we're all going through in this world. Taiwanese freedom of speech and their love of freedom, I would say, and I've said this for a long, long time, that Taiwan, one of the reasons why I stayed in Taiwan and one of the reasons why my friends and I speak all the time about how much we love this place and the people here and the life and opportunity we've been afforded, is because Taiwan is a free place. Like, America talks a lot about freedom, and that's where I come from. My main culture is American, and I still am very much involved in American culture and ideals. But they talk a lot about what freedom is in America. They make it their moniker, but they don't. I think they miss a lot of what freedom is, because in Taiwan I've always felt more free. Part of it maybe being outside of the culture, but I think that just because, there are other ways to look at freedom. One of them is personal safety. Taiwan, you don't worry, most neighborhoods, you don't worry about walking around because there's not a huge disparagement between rich and poor. So the poor aren't so poor that they're in danger, and to that extent, right? I mean, it exists here for sure, but it's not to the extent in America where you're like, oh, if it's too poor of an area, I have to worry about my safety or whatever. Like in Taiwan, you don't have that. So there's a huge freedom in that. There's a freedom in, not worrying about gun violence. There's a freedom in, if the right people are in charge here, an understanding of public health and safety that like leads towards like, oh, if there's a disease comes, like, what do we have to do to actually make people safe? And the majority of people don't question the science and logic and things. They know that like there's so much goes into science, and there's a lot of doctors here. Like, healthcare is amazing in Taiwan. Like, you can go, I have kids now, and like if they get a sniffle or something, we go and see the doctor. In America, that's like a huge thing. You wouldn't go because it's cost too much money. And so like the idea of health here as a concept in Taiwan is much more advanced than it is where I come from. Wages haven't necessarily gone up, but the cost of living hasn't really gone up either. And I think having more foreigners has only ever been a good thing. I don't really see them ever as competition. It's only ever made like life here more interesting. It's changed the culturally who's here. And when at one point in time it was all people from Canada and America, and you get a feeling like, oh wait, we've all run from something. Usually it's like a cold city somewhere, and like now you actually get people with perspectives from everywhere. And then I think having more foreigners also then creates more opportunities within this community, and I'm very thankful for that. One of the best things about my life in Taiwan has been creating music. But because of like creating music came from classical music, that to me was like I gave up on that early and thought that I had no particular skill or any talent or any love for that, because I think classical music is just based around perfectionism and recreation of something that someone else has done, and it's not about creating, and it's not about living in the moment, and there's so much that's missed, right? It's one tiny piece of our musical history as humans. So when I came to Taiwan, one of my best friends, the guy who I started the company with, and he basically taught me this other way of looking at music, which is like, no, you know, pick up an instrument, learn the skill. It all comes from rhythm. Understand rhythm, and you understand bass and harmony, and then you know, then from there you learn melodic instruments and stuff on that. But the whole point is that you're creating something together. And then we had a band. Basically, since then we've changed. The people that have come and gone from the band have changed many times, but we've had a band since then, since I was basically 23 until now. Whenever we have a performance, it's always the most fun, like crescendo of activity. You go out, you create, practice a whole bunch, try to make it something, you know, because we're doing this on dancing rhythms, you know, it's got to be really, really tight. You want to bring everyone together, because it's all about the audience. Whatever they give you is what you're going to be able to give back to them. So if you can get everybody up dancing without asking them to, and then they're going to give you this big power back, and you have a huge experience together. It's a great, you know, the ride out is wonderful after that, and the next thing you want to do is continue that. So anyway, our band now is called the Combobulators. We've been around as this name for like 15 or more years. And so that's been like the best part of my life in Taiwan, is this constant music community, which like in Taiwan has a music scene that's sort of unparalleled. And I think that Taiwan has this like sneaky, kind of the way Japan has, like this secret, but also very, very vibrant music scene.
You guys have your music online, or do you have a website, YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube or on Facebook, the Combobulators. Gambe Bule is the Taiwanese name.
Thank you very much for giving us your time and sharing your life experience in living in Taiwan, and hope you continue to enjoy your stay here in Taiwan.
Well, thanks for doing this, boy.
Thank you. The YouTube links, Instagram, Facebook, all links will be in the description below. Go check it out. Gansie ni sokan. If you like the video or you don't like the video, please leave a comment and let us know what part you don't like. And see you in my next video.